Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's Charity Village webinar. We will get started in just a moment. We just want to make sure that everyone has a chance to join us before we begin the session. We have people tuning in from across the country today, which is excellent. It's so nice to have all of you here. And with that, we will go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to today's Charity Village webinar. My name is Mercedes and I'm the Marketing and Communications Manager with Charity Village. As we are gathering here on a virtual platform, it is important to acknowledge that each of us is joining this webinar from the ancestral or unceded lands of the Inuit, Métis, and First Nation people. I'd like to acknowledge I'm speaking to you from the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Anishinaabe, which includes the Ojibwe of Fort William First Nation. Please join us in a moment of reflection as we recognize the Indigenous peoples as the stewards of this land. Let's acknowledge the mistakes and harm in our history and the ongoing injustice, and contemplate tangible actions each of us can take to move forward in a spirit of truth, reconciliation, and collaboration. For those who may be joining a Charity Village webinar for the first time, Charity Village is Canada's largest online job board for the nonprofit.
Hi, everyone. I think we may have just lost sound there from Mercedes, so I'm just going to carry on here. My name is Marina Dawson, and I also am here presenting with Charity Village and backing up Mercedes today, which is probably a good thing since her sound just cut out. So as she was saying, Charity Village is Canada's largest online job board for the nonprofit sector. And in addition to our job board, we have a lot of resources available, like the webinar that you're attending today. We have downloadable guides, articles, all sorts of great stuff on our website. So we encourage you to head over there and check it out. We're very pleased to have you here on today's webinar. You will notice that all of you are on mute today. That's simply because with a large group of attendees, we do need to make sure that the sound is clear and audible for everybody. If you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A box. You'll see that at the bottom of your screen. We'll do our best to answer as many questions as we can at the end of today's session. So there will be a short Q&A at the end of the webinar today. So just put your questions in as you think of them. With that, I want to turn things over to Tim Hewson from LegalWills to kick us off today. Tim, welcome. It's great to have you here.
Thank you so much. And thank you for picking up on the after the technical disruption. I was kind of frozen there, but thank you so much for the introduction. I'm very much looking forward to this presentation, and I hope it's going to provide some food for thought for everybody in attendance. So just a little bit of background. I am Tim Hewson. I am the CEO and one of the co-founders of LegalWills. We claim to be Canada's #1 leading online will writing platform. We've certainly been around the longest. We were a pioneer in this industry. And to date, we do more wills in any given year than any other online platform and probably any law firm across the country. We support all Canadian provinces and territories bilingually to prepare wills and other estate planning documents. A little bit about the company. We've now done over the 25 years. This is our 25th year of providing this service, and we've now done about 1 million estate planning documents over the years, which include about 500,000 wills in Canada over the 25 years. So we have a lot of experience in preparing wills, and the kind of questions that people ask us about wills. We have a very active support team, customer service team. So any given day, we're getting 20, 30, 40 questions about will writing that's gone into quite a large database of the types of questions that people have about writing a will, what they can do in a will, how they should approach will writing. I'm hopefully going to convey some of that in the presentation today. So what we have as a service online is that first and foremost, we have a last will and testament service. So somebody can come to our website and prepare their will. This really came about from starting our company in 2001, where a group of us, we were working in Canadian high-tech industry, and a group of us went out for drinks after work one Friday. And somebody around the table said, you know what, I don't have a will, and I think I probably should have. And we went around the table of about 15 people at that time. And we all had professional jobs, families, owned houses. We were all doing quite well professionally, and not one single person around the table had a will written. So to us, that was a broken system. We all knew that it was important, but for whatever reason, not one single person around the table had prepared their will. So at that time, myself and my colleague, Henry, we decided to see what we could do to remove the barriers to will writing. That was the fundamental purpose of the company back in 2001, and that has not changed. Now we're in 2025. All we are trying to do is remove the barriers to writing a will. And whether that's price, convenience, education, understanding, we are trying to make will writing accessible for everybody. We also happen to do the other estate planning documents, power of attorney, living will, funeral service, pet trusts, things like that. But in moving the service online, what it allowed us to do is offer a little bit more than just will writing. It allowed us to provide enhanced services like preparing messages for loved ones, putting documents in a vault that can be accessed by named key holders down the road after you passed away, creating what we call a life locker tool, so you can keep an inventory of all of your assets, people to contact, to make sure that things like your assets don't go undiscovered. Because if you've named, say, your brother-in-law as your executor and they're responsible for gathering up your estate, chances are they wouldn't have the faintest idea what the scope of your estate is. So you can keep an inventory of everything that you own and people who should be contacted, subscriptions to be cancelled, utility bills, everything that executor is going to need to actually administer the estate. We've added that to our service over the years as well. But also, one of the amazing things that we have now is that being online, the laws are changing and the laws are evolving. So the law of will writing was really written fundamentally 1837. It went for 250 years. It never really changed, or 200 plus years. But then what happened during COVID is that it was clear that we needed to update some of the laws around signing a piece of paper and signing it in the presence of witnesses. So laws did change around virtual witnessing, electronic signing, and electronic storage of wills. So we were able, as an online company, to be able to jump on that and provide electronic signing capabilities as well. Currently in Canada, it's allowed in BC. It's the only province that allows electronic signing and storage of wills, but it's something that we're going to see rolled out across the rest of the country over the next few years. And online services are likely to be the first to really jump onto those kind of law changes. The final one is, of course, artificial intelligence. We're going to be one of the pioneers in providing people with the knowledge that they need through artificial intelligence, not necessarily will writing through artificial intelligence, but certainly giving people information that they need, answering questions. And we've already deployed some artificial intelligence in our online help services, and some of the the auto attendants, voice commands, and things like that. So let's get into why we started the company, what the real issue is here. And back when we started the company in 2001, around about 65% of Canadian adults didn't have a will. And here we are 25 years later, 500,000 wills created, and that number fundamentally hasn't changed. It's around 2/3 of Canadian adults don't have a will. Of those that do, 12% profess that their will is woefully out of date. So they have a will in place, but it was written before their children were born. And now their children are 25 and 30 years old. They haven't got around to updating the will. So about 25% of Canadian adults feel comfortable that they have a will in place, and it does pretty much what they want it to do. There may be things that they might want to tweak, including things like a charitable bequest, but they're reasonably happy with it. So we're there with about 75% of Canadians who don't have a will, and they probably, most of them know that they probably should have a will. So there's friction there, and LegalWills is one of the companies that's trying to encourage people to get that will written. And we're going to see in this presentation why that's critical, and obviously particularly critical for charities. So why? So why don't people get around to writing their will? Many people think it's too expensive, and traditionally, yes, it is expensive. It has been expensive, and it can be anything from $800, $1,000 to get a will written, or even to get it updated. And there's good reasons for that. And if you go into a really good estate planning attorney and sit with them and have an informational interview about your estate and about your family and about your wishes, that it can take time. It can be a time-consuming process, and there's can be quite justified reasons why a will may cost you $800, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. And that's what I'm going to hopefully show you in this presentation, that there is a spectrum of will writing that can happen. And at the top end, if you want family trusts and detailed estate planning strategies, there is space for that. But there's also space for will writing for people who need a will and they're clear on what their wishes are, and they don't need to get into complex, high-level estate planning strategies. So yes, it can be expensive. It can certainly be time-consuming, and that's booking an appointment with an estate planning attorney, potentially booking follow-up appointments, coordinating that with a spouse. You might have young children. You have to get down to the estate planning attorney's office for a number of different visits. The whole thing just seems too onerous. And some people just feel uncomfortable talking about wills. What does it mean? It's kind of this contemplation of death. It's not something I want to talk about. Some people even feel like it's going to tempt fate if they write their will. What's that going to mean? So there's even kind of superstition around it as well. So it's something that we're trying to do to change the narrative a little bit, and we're trying to make wills not associated with death, and this kind of old trope that where people say, oh, just to let you know, I've written my will. And people immediately say, oh my God, is there something we should be concerned about? Are you okay? And yes, I've done it because I'm a responsible adult and it's part of my financial planning. I've got the will written. I intend to update it throughout my life. I'm only 30 years old now. This is my first of many wills, I would imagine, over my lifetime. So we're trying to change that narrative a little bit around wills meaning death to wills meaning financial planning and responsible adulthood. So let's get into a poll here. So surveys have been done. Why do people not have a will in place? What do you think is the single largest reason why people say they don't have a will in place? Is it too expensive? Is it too time consuming? They don't like to think about this death thing. There's too many difficult decisions involved, so they're kind of putting it off. And with that one, it's particularly things like guardians for their children. We see that a lot. We don't really want to name a guardian for our children because we know who thinks they're going to be the guardian, and we don't want it to be that person. I just don't want to even get into that conversation. Some people think it's obvious. It's obvious what's going to happen to my stuff anyway. I don't even need a will. It's all going to go here. Nothing to leave. Or I'm going to be dead, so I don't care anyway. So what do we think? We're going to put it out there. There is an answer to this. The single biggest reason why people don't have a will in place, but what do you all think is the single largest reason? So look at that, right across the board. It's pretty, it's, wow, we have pretty even numbers across all of them. And it is actually, it can be a combination of these factors. And there is no single biggest answer. It's pretty evenly split, but one of them is I'm too young. I'm too young to worry about it. And that actually ends up being the most common one. And that too young could be I'm only 55. I don't need to worry about it. I'm only 62. I've got years before I need to worry about a will. We have people coming to our service saying, I need to get a will for my mother. Fortunately, I don't need one yet, but my mother certainly does. So this idea that you can write a will when you need it, at that moment when the will is going to be needed, is obviously a fallacy. That's not going to work for anybody. A lot of people say, I don't have any assets to worry about, not realizing that you can actually be worth a lot more after you've died than you ever were when you were alive. And when you're writing a will today, it doesn't mean it's going to come into effect today. You're hoping that you're writing your will today with a view to it coming to effect 5 years, 10 years, sometime, hopefully in the distant future. You may update it throughout time, but you don't necessarily have to have millions of dollars of assets to have your will, to get round to writing your will. Time consuming, expensive, yes. Don't want to think about dying. Don't want to put the EBGBs on me, or the hex on me because I've written my will. There's that one. And one of them as well is not wanting to discuss these things with a stranger. Things like my children, I don't necessarily, for good reasons, I don't want to give them all the same amount. I don't want to, there's things I want to do in my will, and I don't want to have to sit and justify them. There's just things that I want to do in my will that I don't really want to sit and talk to anybody about. So that's why a service like LegalWills, an online service, can address a lot of these things. And this is what we're trying to do within the service is, yes, make it affordable and convenient and private and approachable. So people can, we advertise on our site that you can get your will written in 20 minutes. But you don't have to do it in 20 minutes. You can take 2 weeks if you want to, because there are things to consider in your will that take time. And we know that when people step through our service, a lot of people stop and save their work at something like naming an executor or naming a guardian for their children, or very importantly, charities. And there is a section within our service that allows people to stop and think about charitable bequests in the will. And it's a moment of contemplation for people, because many people step through our service and that has not even occurred to them, that the will is a vehicle for them to actually be philanthropic. It really genuinely does not occur to people. And I have the statistics to support the idea that prompting people and asking people about charitable bequests increases the number of bequests and the size of the bequests as well. So, dying without a will. So here we have potentially 75% of Canadian adults who don't have a will and are providing us with the reasons why they don't need one. So obviously, the most obvious one is that dying without a will means that your assets aren't going to be distributed according to the way you probably would have wanted them to be distributed. every province is different. A couple of them share the same intestacy laws, but most of them are different. What happens to your estate after you die and the way it's distributed varies from province to province to province. And I've rarely seen somebody actually create a distribution plan for their estate that mirrors what the intestate distribution laws are. They're just weird and wacky in most provinces. It doesn't all automatically go to the spouse. It goes to the spouse and the children, equal shares, but a big chunk to the spouse and the rest between the children. It's odd. And particularly actually, if you're not married and you don't have children, then parents, brothers, sisters, that's how the estate is distributed. So yeah, you have no say on who's going to receive anything. You're going to have no say on who's going to take responsibility for carrying out the distribution of your estate. And most importantly, in the context of this conversation, absolutely no charitable bequests and no planned giving whatsoever. So with that 75% of Canadians with no will, each year, millions of potential charitable gifts are being lost due to the lack of wills. And we know, obviously, that charitable bequests is a great way for people to who may on a monthly basis, cost of living crisis, may feel that they can't be as charitable as they would like to be during their lives. It's an opportunity for them to make up for that in a will with 5% of their estate, 2% of their estate, that doesn't actually make a great deal of difference to their beneficiaries, but can make a big difference to their to a charity. I also want to emphasize as well with this specific discussion, this is not about your main known high net worth donors. You probably all know about those people who you are fostering the relationships with and engaging with regularly to make sure that they're considering you and your foundation in their will. And you know those people, and you know how beneficial those people can be to your organization. But I'm talking about the people who may go to your website, may look at the work that you're doing and think, I should actually think about this organization in my will. I wonder how I can go about getting my will written and providing something for this organization. So these are people who you may not have had an ongoing relationship with. You haven't had an ongoing relationship with, but they've now been introduced to your organization, and now they want to think about getting their will written. It happens on the lower end and it happens on the upper end. And it really can just, things like this break my heart. So we have somebody like Aretha Franklin, who died, it's now 5 years ago. Aretha Franklin died without a will. Not technically without a will. She had a will all over her house. She had wills stuffed down the side of her sofa. She had wills in her bedside table. She had a whole bunch of handwritten wills, but effectively died without a will because nobody could make head or tail out of what she really wanted. So none of those, what we call holographic wills, those handwritten scratchings, were admissible as wills. So an $80 million estate that had no charitable donations, she couldn't do anything with any of her memorabilia. She missed the opportunity to set up the scholarship for young up-and-coming musicians in Detroit. This $5 million a year scholarship, missed, nothing there, no trust set up. So what's happened? 5 years later, they're still talking about it. They're still arguing about it. That $80 million estate is now being whittled away and frittered away on legal fees because she didn't take the time to prepare a will, or thought she knew better, thought she could write it herself, or, yeah, absolutely, she may have had some cultural reason why she didn't feel that she wanted to go through the formality of writing these things down. So it happens for people with a $5,000 estate all the way through to an $80 million estate and beyond. I could have put up, oh, this is actually Aretha Franklin's will. This is what she wrote. This is an actual photocopy of one of the 4 wills that she wrote. So some people do, they use either a will kit. So this one on the left is actually a will kit that you can go out and buy at Staples today. And it says at the top of the sheet of paper, I bought this will kit. It cost me $30, and it's a blank sheet of paper that says, I give the following legacies. And I have to write that all in there. So people do use that and buy that. Or some people do an Aretha Franklin and write that kind of thing on the right hand side. Really fundamental, like it's not much better than dying without a will. In fact, it's worse. And then there are some people who didn't even make their best effort. They really just didn't. And I could have listed a dozen, 20, 30 celebrities, because we always hear about celebrities dying without a will. And we also at Legal Wills, we hear from people whose family members have died without a will. In fact, one of the most common scenarios for people to prepare their will using our service is, my father just died without a will. It was an absolute nightmare. I'm not going to put my family what we just went through. I'm going to get my will written. So when people have experienced it firsthand, it prompts people to get to come to a service like ours and prepare their will. And yes, this is Liam Payne, left, ironically, no direction for his estate, and ended up leaving $32 million estate to his 8-year-old son. It just was not what he would have wanted to do, because he was in a new relationship. And again, charitable bequests were missed, and trusts and things like that. So why are people not preparing their wills? What can we do about it? And how can we make it more convenient for people to get it off that to-do list? So it needs to get to the top, and it needs to be available for people at the moment they're thinking about writing their will. So the tools and services need to be available to people when the urge strikes. What happens at Legal Wills is, over the 25 years that we've been running our service, the single busiest week of the year, every single year, is the first week of January. It happened the first year we ran it, had our service online, and we thought, well, that's kind of odd. But it's happened every single year for 25 years. There are 2 reasons for that. One, people say, New Year's resolution, I'm going to get my will written for sure this year. I'm going to see if I can do it. Hang on, I'm going to go online, see if I can prepare my will. Oh, look at that, there's Legal Wills. I can get it done right now. Job done, off the to-do list. The other reason why the first week of January is important to us as a company is because people talk to their family members over their Christmas dinner and over the Christmas holidays, and they say, did you hear about Uncle Albert? Died without a will. What a nightmare. Mom, Dad, have you written your will? I'm not saying because I want anything, but please just make sure it's done, because otherwise you're going to leave us with a mess. It's a loving thing to do. Just do it. So when people have had that conversation and they have that New Year's resolution kind of to-do list mentality, people get it done. And as I say, every year, first week of January, people are getting it done. But the other time is tax season. So people meet with their financial advisors, and people do get their wills written, because that's the only other time of the year where people are regularly prompted to say, last year we talked about getting the will written. We talked about that as part of your financial plan. How did you get on? I didn't do it. I'll do it this year. For sure. I'm going to get it done. I'm going to do it this year. And then the next year goes by. The financial planner meets. How did you get on with the will? Okay. I'm going to for sure get it done. So people are prompted. Some people get it done. Many people procrastinate once again. There is a perception that people are only going to write their will once in their lifetime, and they're going to wait. They're going to wait until, I know I'm getting married next year. Oh, we're expecting our third child. When we buy the house, or when I'm about to change jobs, we're going to be moving. All of these things will put this decision off, and people are going to wait for this stasis in their life, the time that's perfect to get this will written. So, and quite understandably, because traditionally this thing cost them $800, and it was very time consuming. You don't want to have to go through the whole process again 3 months later. So people do hold off and they wait for that perfect time. This is what charities are asking people to do right now. And this is a very common thing that I see on a charities planned giving website. It is leaving your will to us is such an easy, unique thing to, it's a unique and meaningful thing to do. We're here to make this easy. So here's some wording to give us some residue of your estate. Here's some wording to give us a sum of money, and here's some wording, so here's our charitable number. Please put that in as well. Make sure you don't confuse our name with another organization. And if you could just take this sheet of paper and find a lawyer and print this off and go to the lawyer and ask the lawyer to put this paragraph into the will, and therefore we'll be included in the will. There's just so much friction in this process. The person has to find this wording, they have to print off this piece of paper, then make the appointment with the lawyer, and remember to bring this piece of paper along, and even have that proactive thought about charitable bequests in the will as one of the prime reasons for preparing the will. Many times people are going to go and meet with the lawyer, and the lawyer's going to say, hey, have you thought about charitable donations? And the person's going to sit there and freeze because they're like, I know there were some, I've forgotten. I haven't done that prep work. So this is a very high friction approach to getting a will written, and to getting a charitable bequest included in that will. So what did we do at LegalWills? Well, yes, we started the company in 2001, but we found, we actually read a study in 2013 that said if you prompt people to include a charitable bequest in their will, the number of bequests doubles and the size of the bequest doubles. So it's almost a double-double. So it ends up being 4 times as much value in bequests going to charities just simply by prompting people at the point of considering the distribution of their estate. So we added a page within our service. So if you, subsequent to this, look at our service, there's 10 sections. And one of those sections is distributing your estate. And the first section within distributing your estate is stop, think, are there any charities that you want to consider in your will? And anybody can stop and save and give that some thought and then return to it later on. Since adding this page, we have seen an estimated $100 million per year going to charities through our LegalWills websites. We know that because we can run a statistical analysis specifically on that page. And this is not alternate plans. This is very common. What a lot of people do is they say, I want everything to go with my spouse, but if we both die at the same time or my spouse doesn't survive me, then I want it to go to charity. So that's a contingent plan. But what we're talking about is $100 million in planned giving as part of your first choice distribution plan. We didn't look at the alternate plans at all. So we're talking about $100 billion in assets within the wills themselves covered by our service, and percentages of those assets going to charities through our service. The way it works is that we've made it super simple and straightforward to actually click through from a charity as well to come to a landing page customized for that charity, and then you actually can see the work of that charity and actually prompt to say, please include this charity in the will. And I'll show you a little bit of that later on. We are signing up charities. This was just last week. Ottawa Inner Cities Ministries. I met with them, and now they are now sending on their website. Have you thought about including a charity, including us in your will? Click here, you can get your will written right now. But back to this single page in our service on what it has done and what it has done for the charitable giving landscape in Canada. So we did a study of we went back just a few years. We didn't do the whole database of wills that have been written, but we went back a few years and we looked at just over 8,000 wills that have been prepared using our service. These are 8,000 wills that included a charitable bequest as part of the first choice distribution plan. So it's certainly not all the wills in our database. We're still at about 10% of people actually including a charitable bequest. We'd like to do better with that, but around about 10-11% of people are including charitable bequests in their will. So we looked at 8,000 wills that included charitable bequests. In that, so here's some of the stats. So 63% gave money, 37% left a percentage of the residual estate, and around 1% left a thing. Hopefully it's a car, sometimes it's clothing, a teapot. It's a thing that they're giving to the charity. I know I've spoken to charities, it's the least desired outcome from a charitable bequest, but around 1% of people do leave things. So of those 8,000 wills, on average, for the monetary gifts, $15,000 was the mean average amount of money that was left in a single bequest to a charity. Interestingly, like once people get into the swing of things, many people include more than one charitable bequest. So you can see like 2,500 out of these 8,000, somebody left a charitable bequest and think, hey, I'm on a roll here. I'm going to leave a number of different charitable bequests. And we certainly see that bequest after bequest after bequest in some of the wills going to a number of different charities. In fact, 44 wills included more than 10 charitable bequests specifically. So when we looked at these numbers, let's put another poll up there. We categorized these charitable bequests. It's sometimes difficult to put each charity into a specific bucket, but we did that, and we looked at animals, community, religious, healthcare, education. So I put it out there. Which one do we think received the most bequests out of those 8,000 wills? Which was the charitable sector that gained the greatest? And I'll give everybody a minute to maybe look at that. A few seconds. Right across the board again, the animals, and so everyone thinks it's a pretty even split. So I can tell you, when you looked at the actual bequests that came through our service, the total amount of money that went to a charitable sector was going to animals. They received the largest gross amount of money through our wills. Religious organizations came in second. In terms of the average amount given, the size of the bequests, the hospital foundations came out on top, an average of $35,000 per bequest to a hospital foundation. I kind of feel that intuitively makes sense to me, because if I was leaving $1,000 to a charitable organization, I personally would think that $1,000 would impact an animal charity more than a hospital foundation who might be raising money for an MRI machine or something like that. It's not going to make I'm not going to necessarily make as much of an impact with my donation, especially if I'm splitting it across a number of different charities. So what we've seen is animals, in terms of the total amount given, animals, religious, and then hospital foundations and community organizations also do quite well. But in terms of the largest number, the mean amount, hospital foundations, followed by education, which is universities usually, like bequest to a university, and international aid as well. I've taken one. We do have a full report that is available on these charitable bequests. I'm just going to extract one of those, which is community. Around 2,000 wills included a charitable bequest to a community organization. Yes, family foundations that did very well, but we look at Salvation Army, did extremely well. Over 50 bequests going to the Salvation Army, Covenant House, Compassion Canada. They're some of the organizations that are doing very well from wills being created at LegalWills. And again, the average bequest for a community organization is around $26,000. Across all the organizations, top 10 SPCAs, we kind of lumped all of those together. Different animal charities, humane societies as well. Actually, the SPCA and humane societies are not lumped together, they're separate, but animal charities did very well, and some religious organizations. And the top 10 in terms of organizations, in terms of number of dollars, we see hospital organizations, foundations doing very well. I also want to make a quick note here as well about, these I think you may feel that people using our service aren't necessarily going to be high net worth individuals. And I think that's probably true. We're offering a will writing service for $49 because we can. We want to make it as affordable, remove all the barriers to will writing. So this is the most affordable price that we can make it. So is, a high net worth individual with offshore assets and various family trusts and everything else probably aren't going to be going to our website to prepare their will. But I love stories like this, and it happens time and time again, where there's a whole news article about this organization who received a bequest from somebody to inspire conservation amongst youth in this organization. The bequest was $2,000. But it's newsworthy, and it made a massive difference to this organization as well. So, we've talked about Aretha Franklin, we've talked about hospital foundations and everything else, but these smaller bequests can make a huge difference to an organization as well. So what does it look like at LegalWills? And I want to kind of draw to a close here. So at LegalWills, what we do is we just allow an organization, a charitable organization, to put a link through to a custom landing page. So your prospective donor is on your planned giving website. They think, I love the work with this charity. I see what they're saying about the planned giving. That's a great idea. I should go and get my will written. What you can do is just say, here's a link to get it done. And if your prospective donor clicks on that link, they go to a custom landing page. They get a special deal. It's discounted even further from the $49.95. We usually do 20% off, so it's under $40. They can get their will written. And then what happens is, as they step through the service, I'm not sure if you can read this, but what happens is we say, this will is being provided to you by Legacy Fund or whatever your organization is. If you would like to consider donating to Legacy Fund in your will, you can do it right here. We actually will provide your organization as a radio button so people can select it right there. If somebody selects your organization using that radio button, and they're free to leave it to a number of charities, but if they choose that radio button, then what's going to happen is we're going to make sure the exact wording of your organization goes into the final document. So when it says, I'm leaving a percentage of my estate, 10%, to the Legacy Fund of 123 Main Street, that organization with your charitable ID is going to be appearing in the final document as well. Your charitable ID number is appearing in there as well. So there's no, St. Margaret's Church, there's no ambiguity around which St. Margaret's Church you're talking about. I'm going to finish with this one as well, because you all know possibly who your key people are. But I was actually blown away by this article as well, where a person who was considered to be the quiet philanthropist. Nobody really knew about this person much about, they didn't, this person was not a showy individual at all, and prepared their will and left this organization $500 million. This was in Winnipeg. So you may not even know who these high rollers, if you like, who these people are. But yeah, this person was doing very well for themselves. Their family were well taken care of. So yeah, they had $500 million that they can bequest to this Winnipeg Foundation. So this is trying to reach those people that you really don't already know about, right from the $2,000 donation through to the $500 million donation. So with that, I will close, and I'm very happy to open it up to any questions about legal wills, about charitable bequests, and how we can all work together to make Canada more philanthropic.
Thank you very much, Tim. So we'll start off with the first question. So how does someone know whether legal wills would work for their situation?
We do have an onboarding. So there are certainly some things that we can't do. There are some certain types of things like if you're leaving things to a child with special needs, or if you have, or you want a second will, like a corporate will, or if you are an ultra high net worth individual, there are some things that we really don't cater for. So we have an onboarding process that will ask people to see us questions. And then at the end of that, we will say, you know what, it's a good fit. LegalWills is a good fit. And over the 25 years, I feel anecdotally, we've gone from about addressing 80% to maybe 95+% of Canadians who could write a will that serves their needs using our service.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Tim. And so the next question, do you support and assist with the writing of trusts into a personal will so that the benefits are continuous to organizations over the lifetime of a portfolio of the investments?
We do not. So this is what we do is we support charitable bequests that go to directly to the charity for their general purposes, is how it's structured at the moment. It's not setting up trusts to be paid out to the organization over a period of time. If anybody, any of the audience here have ideas for how we can make that charitable bequest page stronger and more useful for charities, more than happy to get that feedback, because we're not the charity experts. I've never worked for a charitable organization in my life. I know a lot about wills, but what charities need in terms of setting up trusts and foundations is the expertise more of the audience than me. Please get in touch. And if you step through our service and feel that there's something lacking in the charitable bequest page, please let us know. And it's software. We can make it better.
Great. Thank you, Tim. And the next question, what are the pros and cons of donating a percentage of the residue of an estate versus specifying a specific donation amount to the charities?
Well, I think generally speaking, and the charities I've spoken to are looking at a residual amount as their preferred approach, simply because values change over time. So if somebody does write a will, if somebody wrote a will 20 years ago that included a bequest for $1,000, it might have meant a lot more to them 20 years ago than it does today. So it's clearly there's an inflationary factor with a fixed sum. The downside, I guess, of residual estates is it does require an estate valuation and working with the executor to know that you're really getting your 12% of the value of that estate. And that can actually cause some discussion, litigation, perhaps even, to know that the charity is getting exactly what they're entitled to. So yeah, I guess that's the pros and cons of both sides.
Thank you. Okay, and the next question, why is charitable giving often overlooked in estate planning?
Because I don't think it occurs to people, quite frankly. What happens is, what prompts people to write a will, first and foremost, is a change in their family situation. They get married or they have a child. That's what's making them write the will. They want to take care of their families, and they step through the service and they say, okay, everything to the spouse, everything to the child, that's it, taken care of. Just by inserting that, by the way, before you get into that, think about some charities. That makes people stop and consider it. I think if we didn't have that prompt, very few people would consider charities, unless people are coming to our service from a charity with that in the front of their minds. But otherwise, it doesn't occur to people.
Thank you, Tim. And then we have a longer question. So this one has a little bit more context. When you prompt people to consider charitable bequests, do you also encourage them to reach out to the charity before they finalize their will and or after they finalize their will? So if the charity can thank them and steward them.
Yeah.
One important reason, oh, sorry.
No, carry on, please. I don't want to interrupt.
No worries. They provided some more context too. So one important reason why charity gift planners would love to speak with those donors and suggest will wording is to ensure that the charity will be able to honor the donor's intentions when the gift is realized.
Yeah. So what we do actually, if you do work with LegalWills and sign up, anybody who clicks through to the landing page, you as a charity, you get an affiliate account. You can log into that affiliate account. You get a full report updated in real time of the number of times it's been clicked, the number of wills that have been created, and all of their contact information, the names and email addresses, and the consent to be contacted is available in that report. So you as an organization would absolutely be able, we regard those people as your prospective donors. And if they have consented to be contacted, you absolutely have that. You will be able to download an Excel spreadsheet of everybody who's included your organization in their will.
That's great to know. Thank you, Tim. And then the next question, would this work for high net worth individuals?
So we don't do estate planning. We don't do tax strategies. We don't actually even offer legal advice for individuals for their individual situation. We're providing a will service. Now, that's not to say, I mean, some people say, look, I'm going to surgery tomorrow. I really need a will, and I'm going to have that will in place. And when I get out of surgery, assuming it all goes well, I'm going to get my proper will written by my lawyer. And then what ends up happening is they come out of surgery, they get the real proper will written, and it's word for word identical to the one they wrote with us. We use the same software that most lawyers use anyway, so it ends up being exactly the same. So yes, people can use our service to write their will, but what they won't get is potentially tax strategies and estate planning strategies from us. So yes, it works as a serviceable will. It may not be an optimized estate plan.
Okay, thank you. And then the next question, does LegalWills recommend charities doing impactful work if a client is interested in supporting a particular sector?
We do not. We do currently no. We do not currently promote individual charities unless people have come through from that charity. Having said that, what we are doing this year is we've really thought about LegalWills. Like, I've been doing this for 25 years with my co-founder Henry, and we're really looking at what difference have we made to society. And when we saw this charitable bequest report, it kind of humbled us a little bit to know that we had made a difference. And as a result of that, 2025, we've said we're really going to double down on charities. We've done everything we can do to make will writing as accessible as possible, but now we're really doubling down on what we can do for charitable organizations in Canada. So we will start doing that. We will start to promote individual organizations within that page. So we're now exploring the idea of on that page having a drop down list of maybe 10 organizations or 15 organizations who we can say, we know these organizations, we know they do great work. if you don't know who you want to, if you want to make a difference, but you don't know how, then choose one of these organizations. We don't currently do it today. It's something that we are considering doing later on this year.
Thank you. And then we have a question. Does LegalWills offer the service of coming out and doing a presentation for a charity to a donor base?
Yeah, absolutely. We do many, many webinars. I'd be more than happy, either me or a member of our team. It's funny, before we started this webinar, I was a little bit delighted to see the attendance, and I did make the comment, I've done webinars with 2 people. I've done live presentations in front of 5 people. Absolutely, more than happy. Our mandate is to get people to write their wills. Our second mandate is to get people to be charitable. More than happy to present to prospective donors. Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you, Tim. And then this will be our final question. So do you provide any wording on how charities can sensitively ask for people to include their charity in their will?
Yeah. Could you ask that again, please?
For sure. Do you provide any wording on how charities can sensitively ask for people to include their charity in their will? So I think they're looking for some context. So if you have any pre-made templates or e-blasts or that type of thing where they can just tailor it to their specific organization, because they're looking for how to sensitively word to invite people to include their charity as part of their will. So they're looking to communicate this to their donor base.
So we don't. What I would say is that the page that we provide in our service is entirely customizable. So the charity writes that paragraph themselves. So we have like default text which says, "This will is brought to you by Legacy Fund. Please consider the work of Legacy Fund in your will." That's our boilerplate. That's the text that we provide. You can actually write whatever you want as an organization in there. I think that we feel that if somebody's coming to our service from a charity, they've already it really already endorses the work of that charity, because they've already gone to the charity's page and then decided they want to write their will in that moment. I'm not a plan. I know there's plan giving associations who deal specifically on how you can optimize the amount of gift planning that you can do, and I'm not an expert in that, but I can say that the wording is customizable, and I guess we can work with you to craft that wording. But I would imagine people on this call have greater expertise than we do.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Tim. Do you happen to have any final comments before we sign off today?
Yeah, I would say that ultimately what we're trying to do as an organization, both at LegalWills and I think for charities as well, is we're trying to reach those 65% of people who don't have a will, and the 12% of people who have an outdated will. There is nothing worse than a charity approaching somebody who's just had their will written, asking them to then update their will to include a charity, because the person's just invested in getting the will written. So we're trying to reach that 77% of people who need a will. And it's an education process that we at LegalWills is doing, but people come to us because they need a will. So it's only so much that we can do to advocate in the education of writing a will. So it's something that I like the idea of us going to talk to prospective donors at charities to say, will writing is really important, and it's maybe something that we can do at LegalWills together with the charities to get people to remove that stigma and step away from that stigma around will writing and consider it to be something that, firstly, they should do for the sake of their family, and think of the will as a really powerful tool that people can use to really reflect their true values. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do, is get people to understand that the will is just a vehicle for them to communicate to the world what their true values are. And there's no better way of doing it than in a will. So if we can work with the audience on this call to both work together to try and explain to people how important legacy giving is, then I think all of Canada will be stronger as a result.
Yes, thank you very much for presenting such an informative webinar today, Tim. I just
Thank
wanted to
you.
remind everyone, oh, sorry.
No, thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And I just want to remind everyone that you will receive a follow-up email tomorrow with a link to the webinar recording. Please feel free to share this link with your colleagues. The email will also include a survey link that you can fill out with your feedback on today's webinar. You should see a survey link pop up right here in Zoom following the session as well. On behalf of Charity Village, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you'll join us for our next free webinar, Permission to Lead Differently, a new model for nonprofit women leaders. You can find more information on this and all of our upcoming webinars at charityvillage.com/webinars. Thanks again for joining us. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day.